All right, welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast, episode 14. And today I'm pumped up because I've got a guy who is a special friend and a special guest, Steve Burford of RawAttractionMagazine.com and the Raw Attraction Magazine podcast. And the thing that I'm most excited about with Steve is that he is a man of truth and the journey. And we're going to get into exactly what that is in a minute. But I'm so excited to have you, Steve. Welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast.
Happy to be here, Rick. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to what we come up with today.
Yeah, and you know, the thing that's so interesting, we were introduced by a mutual friend, Cass, and so many amazing people have come to me recently, you being one of them. And I'm fascinated by the journey. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, Steve.
Well, I'll start with the magazine. The magazine started a couple of years ago, about 2.5 years ago now. And that time I was, 28. And I was still trying to figure out relationships and didn't really know how to attract even a woman that I wanted to go on a date with. Like someone I didn't know, I wanted to be able to attract her with a bit, like a bit quicker than I would normally. So I didn't know about attraction, didn't know anything about relationships, having come from a bad kind of watching my parents fight quite a lot when I was a teenager, didn't really know what love was. And then having relationships when I was 18 to 21, but them just kind of disintegrating, falling apart because I didn't really know myself or what I wanted. And it was more of those relationships back then were more of an escapism. I was escaping from, much as the way an alcoholic will escape reality by drinking, or a drug addict. These relationships were just an escape from kind of watching my parents destroy each other for quite a while. And so it wasn't until I was 28 where I decided, okay, I've got to get this relationship thing sorted. I was already kind of running a business before then, which was a student business, helping students save money at university. That ended and wanted to start a new business, sold that business. And then found out that I could start a magazine, and then I started Raw Attraction. And started it for men and women. It's the first magazine of its kind that is for men and women, trying to like bridge the gap of knowledge and awareness between men and women, which is what you do in your work as well, I think, where, you know, we're growing up in a society where we think we're so different from each other. We have magazines for men, magazines for women. We're separated in religion and even in some spirituality aspects. There's talk of the masculine and the feminine. What is this? When on my journey I found that, you know, the masculine and feminine are both within us, and it's really a relationship is really a journey with self, and that's how you can go deeper into your spiritual practice as well, as through relationship. It's a massive catalyst for change. So the magazine encompasses all those things for men and women. We speak about communication, play, sexuality, tantra, even BDSM we have articles on. And, you know, we're just trying to touch every part of the full awareness of the full spectrum of love and sexuality. That's what I'm kind of here for as part of my life mission, is to really, for my own self, to know what the broad spectrum of love and sexuality is and give that to others so that they then have a choice, because we live in such narrow paradigms in our culture, which is no one's specific fault, but it's the way we have been brought up, is these narrow paradigms when the spectrum is so wide and infinite, so that we've forgotten what is possible in a co-creative relationship. So yeah, that's kind of my path and what the magazine is all about.
And it sounds like anytime we try to put a label on any of this stuff, you mentioned the past paradigms, and then you mentioned infinite. And so for me, I mean, certainly men and women and the dynamics between us and the love potential, it's got to be looked at as infinite. I mean, I can just think of in my own relationships on any given day, the spectrum and the emotions and the highs and lows feel almost infinite just in one particular day. So certainly to highlight and invite people into discovering and honoring the infinite nature of love and these relationships is a tremendous undertaking, number one, but a beautiful service. And I love your message. I love your honesty. I love the truth and vulnerability that you share it with. And I couldn't be happier to have landed on your path and to be doing doing this work with you and sharing this message with our audience. It's just terrific stuff. So tell me how you decided to become an entrepreneur and what the effect on your own relationships has been. Have you had, what are the ups and downs of running a business, especially one like this, with your own love?
It's an interesting question, because when I first started in entrepreneurship, well, I was pretty young, but when I started an online business when I was 21 or 22, I'm 31 now. So that was for students, like I mentioned, for helping them save money at university. So I started that, and I went actually in with the mentality that I could not have a relationship with a business. I just didn't even think the two could, unless I was successful and I had decent money coming in, I couldn't even put any energy into starting a relationship. And that became a self-fulfilling prophecy. I didn't have any relationship during that time of in that business. The business didn't even do that particularly well. It did okay at some points, but then I just ended up getting screwed over by some guys who ripped me off a website design, and I went bankrupt pretty much. And so when I decided to start the digital magazine and the podcast and everything, I decided that I wanted to make this a learning experience for myself and for the listeners and for the readers of the magazine, so that we can all learn about how to do relationships and sexuality better. And rather having this mentality of separating, I can't have a relationship if I'm doing business. No. And for the first year and a half almost of doing the magazine, I wasn't in a relationship. But a relationship came into my path, and it felt like we had to come and be together, which was a strange experience for me that I'd never felt before.
So you had no choice?
Yeah, it was that I had no choice. I had to surrender to this happening, and that was really the honest truth of what happened. And so, yeah, it's been when you can, like you do with your business, when you can integrate. I live an integrated life. I was listening to a video by a guy called Ty Lopez, who's quite big online at the moment with online advice, and he reads a book a day, and it's got billionaire mentors and millionaire mentors and stuff. And he was saying how much happier a life is when we live an integrated life. So if you can create a business that's around your life and literally integrate fitness into your day by having a gym by your bed or your office rather, and not have this separation of everything, then it does create much more flow. We all love to live in flow. It's why people climb mountains and do sport and stuff. That's flow state, as I think it's the Russian author that I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah, it's Csikszentmihalyi
something
Milenti
like,
Chisentili or something. Yeah, Mikhaili Gisentili.
I think his first name is Mikhail or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mikhail Gisentili. Yeah, that's a good book. We'll put it in the show notes. Well, you know what I was just thinking about when you were saying that you felt like you couldn't have a relationship and build this business at the same time. I can think of how many times I went to work over, the last 30-something years and thought, that was the only thing that I could deal with that day. It was like just going to work and whatever I was facing there or whatever the situation, company, coworkers, whatever, bosses, which was tough for me. And how sometimes we really feel like we need to be exclusive with either one or the other. We can't have both. And I think a lot of people are struggling with this today when they go to work in something that they're not happy with or they're not aligned with. And that goes back to, well, hey, listen, I got to make a living. I can't quit this job right now because I need the money. And so imagine if you were doing that and then it was at the expense of communication with your partner, dealing with your kids, having a family, taking care of your fitness or your spirit or your body. Any of the things that we would leave out because we have to go to work every day. And I think that this is a key point that you're touching on here. And so tell us now, how did you get to this integrated life? What happened? And tell us about your relationships now with this, if you've integrated, if you've been able to, with Raw Attraction, change that. Tell me what you what the evolution was.
Well, it's a huge integration because almost anything that comes through the magazine is trying to guide me as well as the readers to better relationships. So everything I learn on a daily basis, I put out there. Or if I need assistance or support on something, I will ask someone to write an article about this. And it also gives me a broader perspective. Going through the relationship, I can see, if I read as the editor of the magazine, I can read the article and say, okay, that is definitely going to be useful. And I can, have better discernment over what is good for the business. And so, the integration is there on that point. On a daily basis, I think it's important just to separate the space where we work, just so we have, because we actually work at home and she works at home on her business as well. She's doing similar stuff to me in the Czech Republic. And so, I don't know, we just created the space where we can flow in our relationship and everything kind of works. I don't know how to.
So it almost sounds like you have what could be looked at as an ideal passion-based business, because the information that's flowing to you for the magazine is feeding your psyche, feeding you intellectually, feeding your love life, and your business at the same time. So the gifts that you're getting, it sounds like an integrated nourishment, and like a media IV is coming in directly into your vein.
Yeah, definitely. It allows me to learn, teach at the same time, and I think we all as humans are naturally learners and teachers at the same time. And so when you can integrate that into your life, whether you're a fitness coach, dance teacher, relationship coach, a media person like me, or whatever you do, you can live that integrated life, which is really important for happiness. And to have that, to take responsibility for your life is really important in relationships as well. Because if you're out of whack and you don't really like your job, and then you're not taking responsibility for that, then it will get put on the relationship you're in, and that's probably a major cause for divorces across the world. is not given the adequate time and for the relationship, as well as not taking responsibility for oneself. And that's one of the biggest teachings that I've got in the last year or so, is, you know, fully taking responsibility for yourself. And that can come up in really deep ways sometimes. I've got a coach myself at the moment, although I wouldn't even call her a coach. She's some kind of, she calls herself a cosmic steward. So she's like Harry Potter's teacher for me anyway. I feel like I'm in Harry Potter school.
Yep.
Anyway, so some things can come up. For example, the other day, this is quite a vulnerable piece, but anyway, I don't mind. We've just come to this new house, and you can see actually behind me we've got the it's a blanket of Alex Gray's work, and I came in this room, and she was here on the floor just trying to fix some wood to the top of it, because it's just fixed by wood. So it can go on the wall. And I walked in the room, and I didn't know she was doing this at all. When she, like, doing some DIY, and I said, "How are you doing?" Just asking what she was doing, and then she said, "Well, the man of the house should be doing this." And I was like, I didn't really react to it too much at the time. I did say, I think, you know, it would be helpful not to communicate like that, I think. But anyway, I needed to take responsibility for what was showing up, but I didn't really know how. And it wasn't until my cosmic steward woman came in and I told her about this, and she said, "Well, that's your wounded feminine showing up. And it's showing up in a way that, you know, Lucy's got wounded feminine in her, you've got it in you, and the wounded feminine resents the masculine. And then so I have to go through a healing process with her over the next week or so to heal my inner feminine. And she doesn't, I can't even explain the way she does the healing. It's beyond anything I've ever known. But it's taking responsibility on that level, and that is quite hard to do, because if I didn't have her as a coach, I wouldn't really know what to do in that circumstance. How I would think, okay, that's her. That must be Lucy. That's, yeah. It doesn't make any logical sense to the male mind, or even maybe the female mind. It doesn't make any sense to think that was me. But when you go that much deeper, you realize, you know, there's stuff there that needs to be looked at on the masculine, feminine level, and that's kind of where the where my relationship is going, but it's where the business is going. We're gonna hopefully start an online sexuality and relationships university where we'll be going deeper into this masculine, feminine healing, and also healing the inner child, and it's going to get deep. Let's just say that. So with these new uncoverings, I'm just going deeper and deeper down the rabbit well, or the rabbit hole, to uncover all the potential roadblocks to love, essentially.
Yeah, it sounds like we need that, and you know, everything you're saying is resonating at a very high level with me, and I'm so excited that you're doing this. And you know, let's face it, our lives are our laboratories. So I know your world is very similar to mine. Your relationship is a laboratory, and that's where you're working on a lot of this stuff and practicing it, and you're seeing it play out. So it is a beautiful gift to be doing what we're doing and to be able to impact other people. So what I'm looking forward to is for everyone to engage with you through this show today, and really, you know, I see my entire audience, which is kind of like in the 45 to 65-year-old range, getting this message, but I also see a lot of the younger people resonating with your message because of your experience and your age, but also because you're speaking to some of these much deeper issues that if we started to look at them at an earlier time in our relationships, we could really have a much more nourishing, romantic, and loving environment. And I think it's a beautiful message. I have a question for you about: have you read a book recently, or do you have a book that like is your number one go-to that you want to share with our audience?
There's been so many, and they always change in terms of what one's the number one go-to, because constantly
Give us something that you really think might, be around this issue for entrepreneurs or love, or that journey just to kind of reconnect or connect on a better level, or maybe even investigate yourself further.
Well, I've always lauded the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. One of the most transformative books I read was his book called Change the Habit of Being Yourself. And this goes on a really core level of, he's a neuroscientist and also very spiritually connected, and talks very much about how, if we have the same thoughts every day, it's our body-mind connection. So if we have a thought and it triggers the same emotional reaction in our brain, and that goes down into our body, and then we're feeling fear, or we're feeling anxiety, and nothing has actually happened in reality apart from a thought has gone into your brain. It seems pretty obvious, but once you go through his work and his meditations in his book, he really explains how to stop that habit of these thoughts that kind of just sabotage you so much. And I've had thoughts sabotage me a lot. It's only recently that I've really been, after going to his workshops and also finding this coach of mine, has really helped a lot as well. But yeah, the sabotage of thoughts is one of the key areas. We have to all look at and take responsibility for the thoughts that we think, because the thoughts will create our reality, and I'm sure everyone's heard that. But to actually have a practical plan of taking more control over your thought, and it's not only your thought, it's the body's reaction that happens to it. And I've actually learned beyond that actual book, I think I mentioned to you when we first spoke, was about this inner child, and this is teachings that will probably come out in the future from us if we stay tuned to what we're doing, is that we all have, this comes from my coach, we all have an inner child, and this inner child is has an emotional age, is basically attributed to our emotional age. So when you get triggered, or I get triggered, something happens in a relationship or in our life, and it's emotionally like traumatic, let's say, then we go back to this default age. And she says she can read people, and she looked at Jesus Christ and looked into his energy and said, okay, Jesus is at 84 months, so that's the maximum that someone can be. And that sounds low, but according to her concept, and I happen to believe it's true, having experienced her work, is that 7 years is actually the if you were brought up in a divine way, then you can be fully emotionally developed by the time you're 7. So she says the average for the world is, the emotional age and the inner child age is 7 months for men and 9 months for women. And so we're basically living in a world of it's like emotionally withdrawn babies, probably running with more masculine energy than feminine. So there's a lot of work we've got to do before we become an enlightened species. But through this university that we're going to be creating, we're going to be looking at how we can practically bring up the age of our inner child, which is kind of beyond, in my opinion anyway, it's beyond the work of what anyone's ever done before. It's beyond, yeah, it's the next step in our evolution is integrating this inner child and the masculine and feminine. It's such profound work that you can only imagine the shift that we would have in a consciousness species if thousands, hopefully millions of people wake up in terms of their inner child and integrating their divine masculine and feminine. It would be such a shift. Such a shift.
It sounds like even small incremental changes in this direction would be monumental. I mean, it would be metaphysically, epic.
Yeah. I mean, I've from my point of view, she did a reading on me. I was 4 months. I was a 4-month-old baby, so I was less than average. And then we did 2 sessions together, and she raised my energy to 84 months. And there was such a profound difference. I was in a really traumatic state in my relationship at that point, which was a few weeks ago. We were almost split up. It was like really horrific. I remember even cancelling. We were going to do a podcast, I think, and I said I couldn't do it because I was literally in a baby state. I could not even handle it, and so there was. And if I hadn't had this sessions of growing up the inner child, then I would have been a mess, and the relationship would have probably been finished. And I think it's given me the stability, this maturity, this presence, even in when the winds are blowing a gale and the storm is in your face and like nothing's going right or right in terms of what your ego wants. I can stand in that and be loving and unconditionally loving and present now. And that is with 2 sessions. So we're going to have to bring out some stuff around this work eventually.
Well, it sounds exciting and scary, and that's all the best things in life. I really appreciate you sharing this with us today, and such good stuff. Going to definitely have to have you on again when that stuff comes out. So tell everybody where they can find you again.
Yeah, well, we've got an app you can get on the iPad or iPhone or iPod. Just search Raw Attraction Magazine in the App Store, or you can go to the website rawattractionmagazine.com, where we put some of the articles, not all the articles are on there. And we have our podcast app, Raw Attraction Magazine Podcast, which you can get off the website or on iTunes. Do sign up on the email if you can as well on the website, because we'll keep you updated. We've got a crowdfunding we're starting soon for this sexuality university. So if you're interested in supporting our work or my work and this type of work, then please do sign up in the email so we can send you stuff about that. That's rawattractionmagazine.com for that. So thanks you so much for having me on today.
Steve, thanks for coming. This was just amazing, and I learned a lot. I'm excited to keep following you and supporting your work. I think you're doing some great things. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Rick.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks.